Hello and welcome to today's session. I hope you're all doing amazingly well from whichever part of the world you are watching. Today, I'd like to talk about my upcoming Wellness Summit, From Land to Legacy, what it really takes to create a purpose led retreat. So, for those of you who are watching me for the first time, for the last 3 years, I have been hosting a wellness event. So, I call it the Wellness in Hospitality Spotlight. So, what I've been doing is shedding the spotlight on different subjects within wellness and hospitality. And in the first year, I shed the spotlight on how wellness was going from being this amenity or add on department, this more insignificant revenue driver, to actually being a prominent part of a hotel's business model. And last year, I went a step further and shed the spotlight on how wellness was going from being this on trend concept to being this concept that was a timeless element within the hotel business model. So it had become fully integrated. So wherever you go, you will see that wellness is now being considered a very important revenue driver within a hotel business model. So traditionally, you find in hotels, the main drivers of revenue were rooms and food and beverage. So you had those two key pillars. Then we had spa and other things, but they didn't quite make a third pillar. But what we're seeing now is that there is a very important third pillar, and it's actually forming that triad of the hotel business model, where the key revenue drivers are rooms, food and beverage, and wellness. And without that triad, you really can't have a solid business model. Doesn't matter what kind of hotel you're leading, and it doesn't even matter what that revenue split is between these three different areas. But what is clear is that wellness has become quite an integrated part of the hotel's business model. Now, this year, what I wanted to do is shed that spotlight on how landowners can create the legacy they want and what it really takes to create that retreat. And the reason I want to do that is because over the last few years, we have seen a rise of that independent boutique hotelier. The pandemic has brought a new kind of entrepreneur to the map, or they probably existed before, but now they're actually being more vocal, more bold, and creating their space in the market. And these independent boutique hoteliers probably don't even consider themselves boutique hoteliers. When I say boutique, small hotels, they consider themselves fundamentally owners of a piece of land on which they want to create something that has an impact on the local community, that regenerates the land and the environment, and is something that they can leave as a legacy for generations to come. So, as this type of entrepreneur is increasing, we could call them the purpose led, the social, the conscious entrepreneur, whatever we want to call them. As we see them increasing, we're also seeing a number of ideas that just stay in the pipeline that actually don't take off. And I have seen, and I try to evaluate, why is it that these brilliant ideas aren't taking off? And I noticed that it was not because the idea they had was not good enough, that the idea they had could not be a solid business concept. It was because they were following a playbook that was never designed for them. So now let me explain what I mean by that. So I started off in this industry. When I say this industry, I'm referring specifically to wellness and hospitality over 2.5 decades ago now. And I entered in from the fitness, banking industry, and then came into spas within hotels. And spas have now evolved to a bigger wellness area. And I remember having worked with very top brands in the spa and wellness area and very top brands in hospitality. I had the privilege to working with great minds when it comes to the pioneers who started creating, the spa and wellness industry back then, and also the hospitality industry bringing in this new business revenue or new stream of revenue into the business model. And what I noticed is that in each and every of these projects I worked with, and I worked with very solid brands and beautiful, breathtaking properties, was that I met with the owners probably once a year, and that also in a wider committee. Rarely, in fact, I can say never, did I have the one-on-one conversation with an owner to understand what vision they had when it came to wellness, when it came to the property. And the reason I didn't have that conversation, obviously I was, I was in a very different place on that ladder. But apart from that, is that that owner or investor already had a portfolio of properties, many luxury five-star hotels across the globe or many around the country that were also being managed by different hotel operators, and the wellness areas being operated by different wellness areas, depending on the brand, depending on the target audience. So for them, the property that was being built was essentially real estate. The business model they're following is essentially real estate. So hundreds of millions of dollars are being injected to create a property where they expect a very solid return on investment. That is why they hired the best hotel operators that have the best hoteliers who are going to ensure they get the return on investment they wanted. So operationally, they get the return on investment for building that hotel. But the land on which they have built that hotel, that piece of real estate, would have also valued substantially across the 5 or 10 years. So the idea of creating that property or that project was to actually make the asset valuation increase. So it's part of the real estate business. Now, I am not saying that that is wrong, and I'm not saying that those investors are not purpose-led, and I'm not saying that the hoteliers and the wellness professionals that were running them did not care of the impact they were making. What I'm trying to get here is that the playbook that is used for this very well-oiled operational machine of that traditional hotel concept is very, very different to when I'm sitting face to face with the owner of a land, and the entire conversation becomes incredibly personal. It is their personal dream. They want to do things differently. They're tired of having done things in a different way that didn't resonate with their business model. And now that they finally have that wealth, they want to make the impact, and they know they can make that impact, and they want to leave that legacy behind. But the idea behind creating that retreat is not to get a quick return on investment and eventually sell that property. It's not about being that real estate business. It's not part of being a portfolio of several properties. They're creating something that is going to be part of their legacy, something that they are going to pass on to future generations. So yes, the conversation is incredibly personal. And we know when we are very personal, when we're very passionate about something, when things become deeply touching what is our savings and what our future generations will get, that is when logic kind of jumps out the window. And what we create becomes personal. It matters to us. And what you can't do in that kind of scenario is implement a playbook that was designed for a very well-oiled operational machine, where decisions are made far more astutely, far more based on your profit and loss, far more on, is this investment worth it? Will this give me the return on investment? Will this investment make this asset be worth X amount, and will I be able to sell it? Is very different to, I want to create this water plant in my hotel so that my local community can have clean water. Even if that investment is so insanely high that you probably not see the monetary return on investment, but you want to make that impact. You want to give back your community. You can't use that playbook. One is designed for a well-oiled operational machine, and the other is designed for something that is your legacy. It's deeply, deeply personal. Now, what I'm not saying is that creating a retreat means that you don't care about profitability, that you don't care about creating a business that is commercially sustainable, that you don't care that your land will be worth substantial amounts of money further down the line. That is not what I'm saying. You can want that, but your main focus is to do things better in your eyes, to do things according to your purpose, to respect the land you have been given, and to build responsibly. So the playbook is entirely different. So that is why I've created From Land to Legacy, to give those landowners a glimpse of what actually goes into creating a wellness retreat. And I will be using one of my clients, Corey, as an example of how 4 years ago he purchased his land in West Africa, beachfront property, and all the changes his dream has gone through in order to become the solid vision he has today. And it has become a concept that can get funding, that has managed to pull together a team of top consultants and experts. And now we're at the point of closing and securing investment to actually open ground. That is a 4-year journey in of itself. And all the while, Corey has been using his own money, his own savings, going up to well over several $100,000 to basically get his vision clear in order to secure funding. So I will be taking you behind the scenes over the 5 days so that you can get a clear idea on how you can change your vague dream to a solid vision that you can articulate very eloquently to your team of consultants so they can implement your vision. They can build it to something that will give a solid return on investment, that will form part of your legacy. You will also see how Corey managed to get to the point where he is today, all the expensive detours, the mistakes he made. So not only all the high moments, but also the moments where he was in his valley of despair, swimming through that river of misery, and sometimes does dip back into that river of misery. And lastly, and most importantly, I'll be talking about his shift in identity. Because when I met him 15 months ago, it was about the guy who had a piece of land, who wanted to do something meaningful, something low-key, to today being that boutique wellness hotelier with residences, creating his first flagship property, and a concept that will be rolled out across the continent. And that shift is important because the only way you can make sure that your retreat actually takes off the ground is by being clear that you become that person who can lead it. What I want to offer with this event for those landowners is that you do not need to be an expert in hospitality. You don't need to be a wellness ninja. You don't need to have 7 figures saved in your bank account or more. You do not need the perfect master plan in order to create the legacy and have the impact you want to make. All you need is that clarity of your vision and the clarity of who you need to become in order to create the legacy you want, to create the impact you have been called to make. But what you can't do is use the traditional playbook based on a very different business model. There is no right or wrong here. No business model is better or more moral. It's just a different model. And if you want yours concept to actually take off, you're going to have to make sure that the playbook you're using applies to you and is relevant to you. So join me next Monday. So from Monday 21st July to Friday 25th July, we will be going over Corey's journey from land to legacy. And in the comment section, I'll be dropping the link to the event. Wishing you all a beautiful day ahead. Take care now.